Okay, let's continue the class. Okay, another important diagram. Again, you're seeing diagram. So just to remind you, this one will be very potential for section A definition area. So for traditional project management, you deal with this triangular, right? So you draw this triangular. In later, a few slides later, you will see we're explaining the relationship between the three components here. You draw triangular. In the middle is the resources. Project management, you deal with manage your resources. And then you have a time, cost, and performance or technologies. So this is the, can say, if you try to explain project management, you draw this triangular, you draw this circle. This circle is later. You draw this circle with this triangular. You put in all the keywords there. Basically, you are you give like 80% of the definition for project management, right? So this you draw this triangular: time, resources, cost, performance, technology, and surround by the environment. The environment is customer component, right? So the rest you read. So the objective of showing you this is project management is to design, to manage the resources in the middle on a given activity within the time, cost, and performance. This is the resources that you need. But what are these three names? These are the constant or the constraint parameter that you need to play in your analysis. You need to analyze, look at the time, cost, and performance or technology that you need to you have. Okay, so resources in the middle, and then you play with the time, cost, and performance to meet customer requirement. Right? Okay, so this is on the textbook lah. Later we will see there's a transformation of this triangular. Okay. All right. So okay. So this outside one, you draw it when you have an outside customer. It becomes the fourth constraint. Right. A good customer relationship will help you. Sometimes, even though you have limited time, but you are very close to the customer, you can negotiate. Okay. Even the cost also, or the performance or technology. Maybe your customer have a better technology compared to you. You negotiate with your customers, they can borrow you the technology. Okay. All right. So in your report, sometimes you need to use the word deliverables or results or output. So projects. Why there's a project? Because you have customer requirement that require you to produce something. That something is called output. Okay. If you all are. So you have a few type of deliverables or output: hardware, software, and interim. Hardware is very direct. For example, a prototype, a piece of things that you can touch, you can sense. Software, this one is more on the reports, or nowadays you have all IT departments that deal simulations. This one is more on the software output. And the interim, this one is a combination between hardware and software. Okay, hardware and software. So interim means in the middle, in the process of the projects. So within the projects, sometimes you need a lot of updates, reports, and all this progressive report. So for example, you are doing your internship, or you are assigned to a company to do something, then you need to submit your logbook, right? Your logbook is interim deliverables. Okay. Okay, we're still back to the triangular and the circle. So this is a very old but still apply, very old definition. Very useful when it comes to your test or final exam. Very old definition. If you, for section A, normally if you draw this one, you will survive lah. If you draw this one, even though you don't know how to explain it, you draw this one at least. If it's 5 points, you get maybe 3 points out of 5 if you draw this one. Okay. Okay. Again, in this module, in the test and your final exam, I don't look for your grammar, but at least use understandable English. Yeah. Right. I give you there are lots of updates lah on the triangular, but it still evolve around the diagram that you've seen just now. The definition of project success. Again, we talk about project success. You go back to the triangular just now. You look at the time. You look at the cost. You look at the specification, customers, scope, workflow, and culture. Right. So these are the two. Corporate culture is the latest one. This one you can read. Okay, so I need to highlight when the latest definition of project success, there's one criteria which is you need to meet within the minimum mutual agreed upon scope changes. This one, you as a project manager, you need to make sure if the project already running or in the negotiation stage, make sure the scope changes stay within the minimum. And then it must be approved by both sides, by the project manager and also by the customers. Then on the workflow, this one, also project management, project manager, he must willing to manage so that it do not alter the main company workflow. What does it mean? If you're in the manufacturing line, let's say you're in a manufacturing company and you're the project manager. So this is machine 1, machine 2, machine 3, machine 4. So this is process 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's say this process is to generate, let's say this shape, these products. But when you this is the old project 1. But in your hand, your customer give you project 2. Project 2, when you come project 2, you try not to alter the process, the company available workflow. What you can do is you do minor changes where you can change the tooling of maybe station 2. You just need to change the head, and then it come up with a round shape, for example. Okay. This one, corporate culture. Corporate culture, if you look at the word culture, for example, if your company have a standard of openness and honesty, so you should respect the company culture for all your projects. Means you tell the truth in all your projects. Projects that you cannot do, you have to tell the customer before you accept the projects in the negotiation stage. So if your company's, if you know your strength as a project manager, so your company's strength, you can do up to a certain, for example, your error is 0.01 mm. means the one that you can cut here, but the customer requests 0.001 mm. So you as a project manager, you have to apply the company culture and then tell the customer we cannot do up to this one. Okay. So for example, that so there the rest you read. The rest you read. Okay. Now, since we are taking project management, there's another technical word called trade-off. Trade-off is, in other words, is you finding alternate solution. Means sometimes you need to sacrifice some of the process. So some aspect of the projects you are satisfied. You means trade-off. So this word normally in the section C of the question, you give solution. So what are the trade-off that you need to apply? Okay. So here I give you example. What are the trade-off? For example, you ask the company boss for more money, or you ask the customers, or you ask the sponsor to give you more time and budget. Right. So for example, in this case, I write on the whiteboard. So your current company production floor, you can do up to 0.01 mm error, but the customer asks for 0.01. You can nego with a trade-off. You can nego with a higher price of the products, right? So you quote higher price. Maybe one piece, normally you sell 10 cents, but because of this high accuracy, maybe you sell $1 per piece. Because the reason is that you need to put in new machine in the workflow. You need to buy new machines, so you need more budget. Or you need to go for more rework or add one more workstation that give you more time to finish. Okay. So just now we mentioned time, cost, and performance technology. They are constrained. So under constraint, you can break into primary and secondary constraint. These are primary constraint, time, cost, performance technology. They are primary. So we further develop the triangular. We go inside the resources here, we break into another field triangular. Outside the gray color is primary. Middle one, it depends on your projects. So this is an example. For example, your resources, your company image reputation is your resources. You have a good branding. For example, you are managing a McDonald's business projects. So you need to, or you for example, a sportwear, Nike and so on. So you need to be careful so that what you do, what you negotiate do not affect the images. For example, you don't involve in the child labor and all this. You don't use a low cost material, for example, right? You put in the risk, you put in the quality and value. Again, secondary, this one, it depends on projects. Okay, depends on projects. What is important, you still stay with the primary constant. Time, cost, performance, technology. Inside one here, it depends on the statement you read in the question. So sometimes it's a culture, sometimes and other things here. Okay, such as risk, customer relationship, image, reputation, and all this. Again, what is important here is that, okay, you know there's a primary and secondary constraint. Okay, so let's say you have a primary and secondary triangular or constraint here. So let's say the project initiate using the success criteria of a triple constraint as shown. So you are given this triangular in a question. and then you need to elaborate or justify whether the project success or not. You see a very lengthy elaboration of the story of that project. Then you look at this triangular. Do we meet primary and secondary constraint? Then you come up with a conclusion or the project successful or not successful. This is section C. Okay. So again, in the secondary one, it can be more than 3. It can more. This one, it can only be 1 resources, like the traditional one, only resources. But it can be break into more triangular inside. Okay, it depends on the complexity of the projects. The bigger the projects, the bigger triangular you have inside here. Okay. So here, sometimes the environment change. For example, your top management, they change people. A new buyer bought over your company, and new director coming in. So new director or new management, they have their own management style. So it will affect your projects. Okay. So why? Because new management, they are the new ways of managing money. So sometimes they don't see the value, then no more budget is given for the particular projects. Okay. So for example, if these two changes, management come in, corporate crisis, then it can change for the left-hand side to right-hand side triangular. Okay, so it can flip from the primary one, it can flip into outside. Means the value now become primary, image reputation become primary, quality become primary, but the traditional cost, time, and other things become secondary. Okay, so you need to read the question carefully. It will tell you the primary constraint of that company is what. Maybe it asks you to draw this triangle. So you just find the keyword lah. What are the constraints? You mention very clearly primary constraints what, secondary constraints what. Then you just put everything there. So here you can use any shape you want as long as you're able to like give the boundaries between this one. It can be round, it can be other things. But you try to keep triangular to simplify. Okay, so example, Disneyland. They have their project manual was given these projects to look at the Disneyland business, and they have 6 constraints. So they have time, cost, scope, safety, aesthetic, and quality. Okay, so these last 3 constraints were considered locked-in constraint that cannot be altered during the trade-off. Means during the negotiation or during the approach of finding solution, this safety, this value, quality you cannot tolerate. You must achieve the objective. So while the cost, time, and scope, this one you can play with the time, cost, and scope. Okay. Okay. So this one, it asks you where does the project manager sits in the organization chart. The president, vice president, director, division, department, section, labor. Project management, It was from the middle between division and department. You will insert one project manager inside here. Okay, so later we'll look at what is project driven and non-project driven definition. Okay. Right. So it's important. So as you can see from this organization chart, project manager is, you can say, as it can be external people. You just hired, come and manage the project and then go. Or it can be internal staffing. Select one of the, maybe one of the director come in to become project manager or so on. But the location in the organization chart is above all the department, section, and label. This is called line or functional functional, what's the word? Okay, but it's important to stay within the above the department. Okay, so we have two big level, micro and macro. Micro means very, very small. You look into microscope or very small area. So if at the micro level, then the organization or your company can break into marketing, engineering, manufacturing. But if you look at the bigger picture, at the macro level, your company or organization can break into project and non-project driven. Okay, project driven example is construction and aerospace, Tesla, automotive industry. Okay, the characteristics of project driven. The first one is they have a separate cost center with their profit and loss or P&L statement. So for example, their own department have their own, one department have their own P&L. So during the board meeting, each department have to present what profit or the P&L statement. They have to present to the director what is the performance of that particular department. Okay. So for example, project driven, so they have project A, project B, project C. Each project, they have to present their own P&L or project and loss statement. Okay, the performance of each projects. Oops. Okay, and then under the projects driven, total profit of the corporate simplified by submission of the profit of all projects. Means they will take all these project A, project B, project C, they will sum up and then put into the company report. This is a project driven organization. So they will centralize everything. A good example, you look at the Tesla company, right? Or SpaceX company. They are projects driven organization, right? A non-driven, normally they are low technology manufacturing. Again, you're looking at the functional line, profit loss. They focus on profit. So which department gain money or bring profit to the company, they will focus on that. So again, the project is to bring in profit for the company to support the production line or the function line. So again, this one, non-project one, they normally focus on the low technology manufacturing. So they focus the resources just now in the triangular, the resources just now is assigned to the revenue producing functional line activities rather than the projects. So they look into department. So that department generate money, bring in a loss of money to the company. They will pump in a loss of resources there. Okay. So this is an example of a organization chart for non-driven organization. You see, it's not a project here, but it become a functional or line manager. Line number 1, line number 2, line number 3. Or can say as product 1, product 2, product 3. Okay, for example, Proton. Inside Proton, you can have a non-driven department, non-projects driven department. You have a different, for example, Proton, you have a different series, right? So they'll look at, okay, this is line number 1, number 2, number 3, and so on. So more detail will be in chapter 2 about non-driven. No, I think we cover here already. All right. So this one you read lah. So what are the difficulties in the non-driven organization? Is that maybe you don't have a lot of projects, so you don't need to have a project-based, project-driven organization. The quantity of your projects is less. Then you have a very complex, or you have different customers that they give you different customer requirements. Sometimes your executive, they want to be a superhero. They want to manage their own themselves. So they don't have sufficient time, but they refuse to delegate the authorities. Means you'll see this kind of culture inside a non-project driven organization. Okay, means there's always one person say all the decision one. Then most probably that one will fall under non-project driven organization. Means this one is like lah. This one is just to say there are some head, like let's say the head of chief department, chief engineer there. You don't touch my thing. You don't touch my thing. You don't cross my border. Okay. So this is a non-driven, like those low manufacturing. If the department doing so well, maybe the chief engineer is have the final say than the owner. So like this is a non-project driven organization. Okay. So these are the difficulties or for non-driven organization, or what are the disadvantages if you have a non-project driven organization. So some project it will be delayed because of approval, and project staffing is on a local basis. Means they look at their own department only. They don't like care what's happening in other department. Heavy dependent on the subcontract, means they like to contract to outsiders to complete the task. Okay. So all these you read, this you read. So non-driven one, non-driven. So you read, So what happens if you do not have you do not identify your specific projects? Then you will have all these effect. Okay. Important, there's a scenario called or syndrome called tip of the iceberg. This one you will see in most of the non-project driven organization. What does it mean? It means the project manager, you will see the project manager sometimes he cannot have the final say, right? So the delegation of authority to the project manager, you see just a little bit only. Just give you, okay, maybe you can do up to certain decision, right? Then beneath the water surface here, you see a loss of downfall. For example, excessive mandling, because there is lack of project understanding, project management, and then you need proper training for all this. Okay, so this is the tip of iceberg. Means there are lots of problem below the surface. Okay, let's do some knowledge check. Then we call it a day. Okay. First question. The traditional competing constraint of the projects are what? Time, cost, quality, scope. Okay, means the triangular lah. Okay. Okay. Which of the following is not part of the definition of projects? Okay. So A is not. You have a constraint, you have consumption, you have resources, you have objective. Okay. Number 3, which of the following usually not part of the criteria for project success? Customer, meeting. Okay. C lah. Okay. So number 4, which of the following generally not a benefit achieved from using project management? Flexibility, end date, implement, estimating, tracking. Okay. So it say generally not a benefit achieving from using project management. So again, project management, you have a start date, end date. There's no flexibility. You need to manage within the time. It can be trade-off. This one, it can be linked to trade-off, but not project management. C, improve estimating means benefit lah. If you have project management, you can do planning and all this. So there are 5 phrases, right? So this is one of the point inside the project management. Okay. Okay. Number 5, the person responsible for assigning the resources to the project is mostly which one? Manager, line manager. HR, of course, out already lah. Sponsor, of course, out already. So which one? Manager or line manager? Line manager. They have the final say, means functional manager. They have the final say of the resources. Project manager, he can extract information, but he don't interrupt the authority of the line manager. Okay. Conflict between project and line manager are often resolved by what? You use what? Assistant, sponsor, there's a committee or human resource. Okay, project sponsor. Okay. Okay. Your company does only projects if the project performed by your company are for customer externally to your company and a profit criteria exists on the projects. Then your organization are most likely project driven, non-project driven, hybrid, or above possible based on size of project margin. This one A, because the first line already tell you already. There's only projects, but why is project driven? So here lah. Why project driven? You look at the whole picture of your profit and loss. Okay. When you look at a non-project driven means it will mention functional, it will mention line manager, it will mention a specific department. Then it will become non-project driven. Okay. Okay. So I think we have covered the first the introduction of project management. Maybe you go a bit more on the risk. Okay, 10 more minutes, then we call it a day. Okay, now we enter into the risk management. Again, definition. Okay, definition you can read. So risk is a measurement of probability and consequences of not achieving again project goal. That is risk. Again, definition, if you see definition, very high chances you come up with a section A of the question. So most people agree risk involved with notation of uncertainty. So for example, these two questions, can the aircraft fly at a certain range? Can the computer produce within the budget cost? Can the new products launch at a certain date? Right. So you have numbers for uncertainty. You learn about statistics. You learn about probability. Right. So if you talk about risk link with the if you do risk management, you learn Six Sigma, or you learn the probability graph. You do hypothesis and all this. So how many percent on the right, how many percent on the left, and so on. Okay. So for risk, this one, for example, probability measure not meeting new products is 0.15. So for goal A, probability of occurrence is 0.05. B is 0.2, means 20%. One is 5%. So the probability of not meeting goal A is 0.5, 0.05. Not meeting the customer requirement or cannot achieve the projects is 20%. So of course, which one is more risky? B is more risky. However, goal A can be more risky than B, provided what? What kind of situation A can be more risky than B? Casualty. If the consequences of not meeting goal A more than 4 times more severe than inability to meet goal B, it means that this one maybe you have 4 projects. These 4 projects have this goal. It cannot meet goal A or this requirement for more than 4 times. Then goal A is more risky than goal B lah. Okay, but in general, the answer is B. But goal A keep repeating or keep happening for more than 4 times, then it will be more than 20%. No, this one is goal A. Goal A can be a criteria. It can be a customer requirement. For example, the customer asks for a certain dimension, right? So achieving a certain criteria, maybe cannot meet that criteria is 5%, and cannot meet that criteria B is 20%. So, but your line design or your function floor plan maybe have a problems, and maybe the operator you hire want to make trouble, and always when you reach that station B, always got reject one. So then it will increase the chances of goal A from happening. It's just that thing. Okay, but again, the answer is B. If you do analysis later, the answer is B. You try to avoid goal B, or you try to negotiate with the trade-off condition. Okay, now we start looking at the graph. So risks have two components: probability, mean percentage of happening, and the impact of the event or consequences. So you have probability on your y-axis and the impact on the x-axis. So probability, if it's high but no impact, then it is fine, right? So you have three reasons here. You have high risk, moderate risk, and low risk. So you have three zones there. Okay, you have three zones. Here is just a simplified diagram. There's no number given. It's just that it gives you, like, for example, if you have high impact, high probability, then you are under high risk. You have a low impact, but you have a very high probability, you're still under low risk. Okay. So if you want to write this one in calculation, your risk function have two unknown: probability and consequences, means your x and y. Okay, you do mathematics, right? Your function y equal to function x, y, right? This one you learn in your mathematics. Okay. So, for example, hazard risk is one of your, for example, your risk is hazard. So a certain hazard you can overcome or you can reduce it by studying them and knowing them, and you take action to overcome them. For example, you know that there's a lot of holes on the road that you travel every day. Of course, you become a better driver compared to a newcomers that first time use the road, right? Okay, so this one you read lah. It's just that the more experience you have, the more risk management that you can do, because you know that, oh, this one is going to happen, and then you overcome it with a certain measure. Okay. So the second equation function for risk just now is probability and impact. Second one is risk can also rate in the hazard and safeguard. Meaning you control your hazard by safeguard. So it means that if you have higher safeguard, your risk is reduced. Yeah. So there are two definitions of risk. One is probability and impact. Another one is hazard and safeguard, or safety measure also can. Okay. So this is a table. How we read this table? So okay. So on this one, risk, issue, problem, opportunity. Then you have probability, you have consequences, you have time frame. How we read this table? The first one, for risk and problems, you have probability less than 1, right? So probability equal to 1 means 100% it will occur, it will happen. So problem, you have probability of 1. They sure have problem going to happen. Then your risk will be either 0 or 1. You either have risk, high risk, or low risk, or no risk. So you have from 0 to 1. If you play within problem and risk, okay. Then issue this one. Issue will happen in the future. So time frame here, issue will happen if your probability is 1, means it will happen, but when? Risk issue will happen in the future. Risk, it can also happen in the future, but problem is present tense. Problems happen now. Okay, problem happen now. The problem will link to future issue or link to future risk. Okay. Then for opportunity dimension is unclear, is unable to define whether it can happen or not happen. It is unsure. Okay. And also the time frame, you don't know whether in the future you have opportunity or not. Okay, opportunity here, it means it bring a benefit to the company. Yeah, so this is a table on how you explain about risk, issue, and problems. Huh? Okay, next we talk about tolerance of risk. This one is more on the profile of a project manager. So you have three profile or three behavior. Okay, so what is U? U is amount of satisfied, means the sense of satisfaction. So the first one, okay, y-axis is U, v-axis is the money, the amount of money at stake. It can be performance and so on. So you have risk averted, risk neutral, and risk seeker, or we call it. If you have fall into this one, you are the project manager who right to take risks. Okay, so this one normal, this one a bit passive. So what does it mean? Okay, so it depends on what kind of risk management project manager you are. So for example, the first one, if you go towards X, means you are given more money. If you're given more money, your satisfaction U is start to reduce already. Okay, start to reduce means if you're given, you can say if you're being paid, compensate for a certain money, the more money is compensate, then your satisfaction become less and less. If you're the first one, you're the risk averter. Then this one, if you increase the salary or the pay, but your satisfaction also go along with the increment of your pay, then you are the neutral. Okay. The third one is a risk taker. So this one, what happened is that you see if the satisfaction is exponentially increased. You get excited if you pump in more money. You give him more budget, this project manager become more excited. Okay. Okay. So if you fall into the first one, if the project manager is a risk averter, he is more satisfied to have a certain outcome and will demand a premium to accept risk. Okay, if he's the first one. Risk taker, they prefer more challenges, means when they take the projects, they can take in more uncertainty, means they have more rooms to play. And some customer, they write this kind of project manager because they can save a lot of meetings and all this. Most of the time, they are more experienced project manager. Okay, then they're willing to pay a penalty to take risk. If you fall into risk seeker, this is a profile of a tolerance of our risk. So the neutral one is between the left and the right. Okay. So this kind of question, how we ask is that we give you the profile, we give you the description of the project manager. Then you say, you try to classify the tolerance of the risk. So it's either a risk averter, risk neutral, or risk seeker, or you can use the word risk taker. Okay, there are three profiles. Project manager tolerance of risk can change with time. And different presentation of this tolerance should not exist at the same time, else inconsistent decision will be made. It means you cannot have two kind of graph overlap at the same time. It can be maybe January, the first year maybe you are the risk averter, but as you gain more experience, your profile might change to risk taker, but not happen at the same time. Okay. Okay, the rest you read is a definition for risk management. Risk management is blah, blah, blah. You read this one. And it will go through a cycle: planning, identify, analyzing, risk response strategies, monitoring, controlling. Okay. So basically, this diagram explains the definition of risk management. Okay. Some textbook they use this another words for the risk management. So if you look at the left hand side, it starts with planning. Means it can be identify, analyze, action, monitor, control. Some textbook they use the right hand side: identify, access, track, trick, monitoring, and report. Both also correct. Both are correct. Okay, quiz time. So it just strengthen your learnings lah. So there are two major components of risk. What are they? Certainty and impact. Okay, the graph. Okay. So again, there are two definitions. Probability, impact, safeguard, and what? Hazard. Yeah. Risk management is normally performed by which one? Okay, A. Means you need to have plans. You can plans. Okay. Question 3, future outcomes that provide favor opportunity are called opportunities. The cause of risk event is usually referred as hazard. Okay. I think this one we continue next lecture. We look at the contracts management and also IP. Okay. We'll see you on Friday morning. Friday morning. Classroom RC 305. Okay, I stop the recording. Yes. Yes.